Hi, I'm Bobby Russell. I'm a Microsoft technical trainer. I'm here to walk you through the SC200 Microsoft Security Operations Analyst course. In this, welcome to Learning Path 7, where we're going to configure your Microsoft Sentinel environment. In this learning path, we'll cover an introduction to Microsoft Sentinel. We'll look at creating and managing workspaces within Microsoft Sentinel. We'll look at querying logs. We'll look at using watch lists, as well as threat intelligence, all within Microsoft Sentinel. And finally, we'll look at the Unified Security Operations Platform. So with that, let's jump into our first module, an introduction into Microsoft Sentinel. After completing this module, you'll be able to identify the various components and functionalities of Microsoft Sentinel. We'll also talk about, identifying use cases where Sentinel would be a great solution for you. Microsoft Sentinel is a cloud-native SIEM, S-I-E-M, and SOAR, S-O-A-R, solution. SIEM standing for Security Information and Event Management, and SOAR standing for Security Orchestration and Automated Response. And this helps you detect, investigate, and respond to security threats across your environment. It pulls in data from all kinds of sources like Azure, Microsoft 365, firewalls, even your third-party tools, so you get a full picture of what's going on. You can write custom KQL queries to hunt for threats, build dashboards, or even automate responses using playbooks, which are powered by Logic apps. It's scalable, flexible, and integrates really well with the rest of Microsoft's security ecosystem, making it a solid choice for modern security operations. This gives us a quick overview of how Microsoft Sentinel works by breaking down its core components. It highlights 9 key features that make up the SIEM solution, like data connectors for bringing in logs, analytics rules for detecting threats, and automation playbooks for responding to incidents. Tools like workbooks, hunting queries, and notebooks help analysts visualize and investigate data more effectively. Altogether, these pieces work together to help security teams detect, investigate, and respond to threats in a streamlined way. We'll do a dive into each of the following modules coming up. Microsoft Sentinel is a great fit when you need to collect event data from various sources and run security operations across cloud and on-prem environments. It supports tasks like log visualization, anomaly detection, threat hunting, and automated incident response. Because it's a cloud native, there's no infrastructure to manage and it scales easily. Plus, it combines SIEM and data lake capabilities, making it a powerful all-in-one solution for modern security operations. So let's go ahead and jump into our second module, where we'll look at how do we create and manage Sentinel workspaces. And in this module, we're going to look at what is a workspace in Sentinel. We'll look at how do we install workspaces, and then finally, how do we manage workspaces within our Microsoft Sentinel infrastructure. When setting up Microsoft Sentinel, there are a few different workspace configurations that you want to consider. So let's look at some pros and cons for each type. We start with a single tenant with a single workspace. So what are the benefits? This is simple to manage and deploy. It provides centralized data and analytics, and it's easier to maintain consistent policies across all of your controls. But the downside to it is it may introduce latency for global organizations due to the fact that we're transferring data across regions. There's limited flexibility for region-specific compliance or data residency requirements. So those are some things you want to consider. The second option is a single tenant with regional workspace. So the benefits are you get better performance and compliance for global operations by keeping data closer to the source. And it allows for region-specific customizations and tuning. The downside to it is it makes it more complicated to manage because now we have multiple workspaces, and it's harder to get a unified view without additional aggregation or cross-workspace queries. The third option we have are multi-tenant deployment. So the benefit for this is these are ideal for managed security providers or large enterprises managing multiple business units or clients. With this, you get strong isolation between tenants for security and compliance. The downside would be it requires more advanced setup and management. And then cross-tenant visibility and correlation are more complicated and may need additional tooling to be able to do. We also have the Workspace Manager, and this gives you a centralized way to view and manage multiple Sentinel workspaces across your environment. Instead of jumping between portals or tabs, you get a unified experience where you can run queries, monitor incidents, and even deploy content across your workspaces, all from a single place. It's especially powerful for your MSSPs or large enterprises with regional or business units that require specific workspaces. You can standardize deployments, apply analytics rules, and manage automation playbooks consistently without duplicating your effort. And the best part? It supports cross-workspace hunting and investigation so you can correlate threats and incidents across your entire organization without losing any visibility or context. The next thing we have is Azure Lighthouse. Azure Lighthouse makes it possible to manage Microsoft Sentinel workspaces across multiple tenants from a single centralized view. It's especially useful for service providers or large organizations that need to oversee multiple customer environments. With Lighthouse, you get access to subscription-level tools, so you can manage resources like Sentinel without switching between tenants. This setup streamlines operations and makes cross-tenant security management much more efficient. All right, so to get started with Microsoft Sentinel, there are 3 key steps to follow. First, we need to make sure you have the right permissions in your Azure subscription. That's a must before you do anything else. Next, you're going to create and configure a log analytics workspace and be thoughtful about the region you choose, since this can affect data residency and performance. Finally, once your workspace is ready, you can add Microsoft Sentinel to it and start connecting data sources. Microsoft Sentinel uses a variety of roles and permissions to control access, and they're grouped into 4 main categories. These are Sentinel-specific roles, broader Azure roles, and log analytics roles. And detailed breakdowns of each one is important in what they can do. For more advanced scenarios, you can even create custom roles using Azure RBAC to fine-tune access. This structure helps ensure the right people have the right level of access. Nothing more, nothing less. Managing Microsoft Sentinel settings involves 2 key areas: the Sentinel interface itself and the underlying log analytics workspace. One of the most important settings to configure is data retention, which directly impacts both your visibility into your historical data and your costs. You can adjust retention settings, apply daily caps, and choose pricing tiers like pay-as-you-go to optimize your flexibility and budget. It's also helpful to monitor usage trends and cost estimates in your workspaces. Usage and estimated cost section is where you can go to see all of those things, because what you don't want is a surprise in your billing. We also have your table plan. Configure a table plan based on how often you access data in a table. The analytics plan is suited for continuous monitoring, real-time detection, and performance analytics. This plan makes log data available for interactive multi-table queries and used by features and services for 30 days and up to 2 years. So anywhere from 30 days to 2 years. The basic plan is suited for troubleshooting and incident response. This plan offers discounted ingestion and optimized single table queries for 30 days. The auxiliary plan is suited for low-touch data such as verbose logs and data required for auditing and compliance. This plan offers low-cost integration and unoptimized single table queries for 30 days. Then we have our long-term retention. Long-term retention is a low-cost solution for keeping data that you don't use regularly in your workspace for compliance or occasional investigations. Use table-level retention settings to add or extend long-term retention as needed. So now, let's jump into our 3rd module, querying logs in Microsoft Sentinel. After completing this module, you'll be able to use the logs page to view data tables in Microsoft Sentinel, as well as query the most used tables using Microsoft Sentinel. So this view that you see here shows the core interface for running and managing log queries in Microsoft Azure. You've got a query window where you can write, run, and save KQL queries, plus options to create alert rules or export results. The time range is adjustable. Here it's set for the last 24 hours. So you can focus your analysis on, information that's right there that you need. Below that, the results pane and the output with column like time generated, computer, and event source name are given there to help you quickly analyze what's happening in your environment. Microsoft Sentinel uses several key tables to organize and manage security data. The security alert table holds alerts triggered by analytics rule or directly from data connectors. Those alerts can roll up into the security incident table, which helps group related alerts into a single investigation. The threat intelligence indicator table stores indicators like IPs, domains, and file hashes either manually added or pulled from a threat intelligence feed. And finally, the watch list table. This is where you can store custom data sets like high-value targets or known bad actors to enrich your detections. This summary gives you a quick look at some of the most commonly used log tables in Microsoft Sentinel. Each table represents a different type of data source, like Azure Activity for Azure Platform events, audit logs for Entra ID activity, and security event for Windows security logs. You'll also find logs for Office 365, Linux systems via syslog, and even firewall events. Knowing what each table contains helps you target the right data when building queries or setting up alerts. All right, so now, this table gives you a helpful overview of the key data tables used in Microsoft Defender XDR. Each table focuses on a different aspect of security telemetry, like device events for general device activity, or device login events for authentication, and email events for Microsoft 365 email tracking. You'll also find tables for cloud app usage, file and registry changes, network activity, and even vulnerability management data. Understanding what each table contains makes it easier to build targeted queries and investigations across your entire security environment. So now, let's jump into our fourth module using watch lists in Microsoft Sentinel. After completing this module, you'll be able to create a watch list, use KQL to access the watch list in Sentinel, as well as update a watch list in Microsoft Sentinel. Watch lists in Microsoft Sentinel are a powerful way to bring external data, like IP addresses or file hashes or other lists, into your security operations. They help you investigate threats faster by letting you import data from a CSV file and use it directly in your queries or even your alert rules. You can also use watch lists to manage access, like creating allow or deny lists for privileged users, which helps reduce noise and alert fatigue. Plus, they're great for enhancing your event data with context that might not exist in your logs alone. Microsoft Sentinel makes it easy to create and manage watch lists directly from its interface. You can upload data like IP addresses or users or domains from files such as Excel, and then you can use that data in your analytics rules, your hunting queries, or even your investigations. The platform gives you full control to add, update, or delete watch list items, and even view logs related to their usage. Each watch list entry includes helpful metadata like names or aliases, the source file type, and status, so you can always know what's active and available. Watch lists in Microsoft Sentinel can be queried directly or using KQL, just like any other data source. Here, the _get watch list SAP-networks function is used to pull a specific watch list that contains network-related entries. The results include useful fields like search key, description, and network, which can be used to enrich investigations or filter alerts. This makes it easy to reference external data like known internal or support networks, as well as getting right inside of your log queries. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our next module, Module 5. And in here, we're going to talk about utilizing threat intelligence in Microsoft Sentinel. Now, after we complete Module 5, you'll be able to manage threat indicators in Sentinel, as well as use KQL to access threat indicators in your Microsoft Sentinel environments. Threat intelligence is all about knowing data points, like an IP address, a URL, a file hash. And these are things that may be tied to malicious activities, such as phishing or malware or botnets. These indicators help security teams detect and respond to threats more effectively by feeding into tools like Microsoft Sentinel. Once ingested, this data flows through connectors, logs, and analytics rules, triggering incidents and automated playbooks. Workbooks then help visualize and track these threats, giving teams a clear view of what's happening and how to respond. Microsoft Sentinel makes it easy to manage threat indicators right from the interface. There's no KQL required. You can view, filter, and search through imported indicators like IP addresses or domains or file hashes, and even create new ones directly within the platform. It also supports tagging and organizing indicators to help with investigations and threat tracking. If you do want to dive deeper, all this data is accessible through the Threat Intelligence Indicator table within KQL. Now let's jump into our next module, which will cover the Unified Security Operations Platform. Microsoft Sentinel is now fully integrated into the Microsoft Defender portal, offering a unified experience for managing SIEM and XDR in one place. Onboarding requires specific permissions and setup, including connecting the Microsoft Defender XDR connector and enabling incident and alert sharing. Once connected, incidents and alerts sync bidirectionally, and Defender XDR takes over correlation and incident creation, replacing Sentinel's Fusion engine. Automation rules, APIs, and data retention settings continue to work as expected, and advanced hunting now supports cross-platform queries. Role-based access is unified also, giving analysts filtered views in the portal while still allowing full access through Sentinel logs and hunting tools. This slide presents a technical architecture of Microsoft Sentinel within a unified security operations platform. It illustrates how telemetry and security signals from Microsoft services such as Defender for Endpoint, Office 365, Identity, and Cloud apps, as well as third-party SaaS and IaaS applications, are aggregated through Microsoft Defender XDR. These signals are then funneled into the Microsoft Defender portal for security operations, or SecOps, and the analysis and for further response. Finally, the SIEM data is processed by Microsoft Sentinel, enabling multi-cloud threat detection and response across Azure services and external integrations. Get incident-level visibility across the cyber attack chain with Microsoft Defender XDR, formerly known as Microsoft 365 Defender. Take your SOC team to the next level with automatic disruption of advanced cyber attacks and accelerated response across your endpoints and IoT, hybrid identities, email and collaboration tools, software as a service applications, and your data. Endpoints, they discover and secure the network devices across your multi-platform environments. Your identities manage and secure hybrid identities and simplify employee, partner, and customer access. We have our SaaS apps, which give you visibility, control data, and detect cyber threats across cloud services and apps. And we have email and collaboration tools that are designed to protect your email and collaboration tools from advanced cyber threats such as phishing and business compromise. Secure your digital estate with the only security operations platform that unifies the full capabilities of XDR and security information and event management. In this module, we'll look at the benefits of overall integration. So let's take a look at this table. It describes the new and improved capabilities available in the Defender portal with the integration of Microsoft Sentinel and Defender XDR. With advanced hunting, you can query from a single portal across different data sets to make hunting more efficient and remove the need for context switching. You can benefit from automatic attack disruption for SAP with both the unified security operations platform and attack disruption. Get high fidelity and actionable recommendations to help you identify areas to reduce costs, add security controls, and add missing data through SOC optimizations. With unified entities, you get entity pages for devices, users, IP addresses, and Azure resources in the Defender portal. And it can display information from Microsoft Sentinel and Defender data sources. And finally, you can manage and investigate security incidents in a single location and from a single queue in the Defender portal with unified incidents. With Microsoft Sentinel now integrated into the Defender portal, you get a more unified and efficient incident response experience. Incidents from the Microsoft Defender XDR show up right alongside Sentinel incidents, clearly labeled and fully functional. Thanks to the shared correlation engine, incidents are created faster and with greater accuracy. As new alerts or entities are added in Defender XDR, the corresponding Sentinel incident updates automatically, keeping everything in sync. This seamless integration helps analysts stay focused and respond more effectively without switching tools. With the unified platform incident updates made in either Microsoft Sentinel or Defender XDR, they sync instantly across both portals, keeping your investigations aligned. You can now transfer all alerts from one incident to another directly within the XDR portal, giving you more control over incidents and how they're grouped. Plus, since Sentinel is onboarded, you can use the embedded Microsoft Security Copilot experience to analyze Sentinel data more intelligently. It's all about streamlining your response and giving you smarter tools to act faster. Integrating Microsoft Sentinel with your Defender XDR in the unified security operations platform brings a lot of value to your security operations. It allows for one-click connection of Defender XDR incidents, including all related alerts and entities, directly into Sentinel. You also get bidirectional sync for incident status, ownership, and resolution details, making collaboration seamless. Defender XDR's alert grouping and its enrichment features help reduce noise and speed up investigations. Plus, deep links between the incidents in both portals makes it easy to pivot between views and investigate efficiently. The Defender XDR connector also lets you stream advanced hunting events, a type of raw event data from Defender XDR and its component services in the Microsoft Sentinel. Store the logs with increased retention beyond Defender's XDR or its components, default retention period of 30 days. You can do so by configuring the retention of your workspace or by configuring per table retention in your log analytics, which we discussed earlier. All right, so in this module, we'll look at the capability differences between our portals. While most Microsoft Sentinel features are available in both Azure and Defender portals, there are some important differences to keep in mind. The Azure portal is where you'll find advanced capabilities like Fusion Analytics, incident tasks, and programmatic incident creation, all of which aren't supported in the unified Defender experience. On the flip side, managing alerts within incidents like adding or removing them is only possible in the Defender portal after you've done your onboarding. Also, workspace management is more flexible in Azure, allowing you to centrally manage multiple Sentinel workspaces, whereas in the Defender portal, you're limited to just one per tenant. Understanding some of these distinctions helps ensure that you're using the right portal for the right tasks, especially when it comes to incident handling and automation. Refer to the Microsoft Learn site for a full list of capability differences. When you connect Microsoft Sentinel to Defender XDR in the unified platform, Sentinel's incident creation rules are turned off for Defender integrated products like Defender for Identity and Defender for Office. Instead, Defender XDR takes over incident creation using its own internal correlation engine, which means you can't filter alerts or customize incident titles the same way as before. To maintain control over alert handling, you'll need to use alert tuning in the Defender portal or set up automation rules in Sentinel. If your automation rules rely on incident names, it's best to switch to using tags or other stable conditions. For products not integrated with Defender XDR, like let's say Microsoft Purview, you should replace Sentinel's incident creation rules with scheduled analytics rules. All right, so now it's time for our next module. Let's start with the onboarding process. To get started with Microsoft Sentinel in the Defender portal, there are a few key setup steps. You'll need a log analytics workspace with Sentinel enabled and the Microsoft Defender XDR connector turned on to bring in incidents and alerts. Access to Microsoft Defender XDR in the Defender portal is also required, along with having it onboarded into your Entra tenant. Lastly, make sure your Azure account has the right roles to manage Sentinel and submit support requests if they're needed. So once you enable the Defender XDR connector in Microsoft Sentinel, incidents from Defender XDR start appearing in Sentinel within about 10 minutes. These alerts and incidents are ingested in the Sentinel at no cost, but ingestion charges still apply for other data types that you have. Incident creation is now handled entirely by Defender XDR, which disables Sentinel's incident creation rules for integrated products. This means you lose the ability to filter alerts or customize incident titles using Sentinel's rules. To maintain control, use alert tuning in the Defender portal or automation rules in Sentinel, and avoid relying on incident titles. You should use tags or other stable conditions instead. So read and understand the product changes associated with connecting your workspace. These changes include things like log tables, queries, and functions in the Microsoft Sentinel workspace are also available in your advanced hunting within Defender XDR. The Microsoft Sentinel contributor role is assigned to the Microsoft Threat Protection and Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection apps within the subscriptions. Active Microsoft Security Event Creation rules are deactivated to avoid duplicate entries. This change only applies to incident creation rules for Microsoft Alerts and not to other analytics rules. Also, all alerts related to Defender XDR products are streamlined directly from the main Defender data connector to ensure consistency. Make sure you have the incidents and alerts from this connector turned on in your workspace. And after your workspace is connected, the banner on the overview page shows that your Unified Security Information and Event Management SIEM and Extended Detection and Response XDR are ready. The overview page is updated with a new sections that include metrics from Sentinel, like the number of data connectors and automation rules that you have. You can easily launch the Microsoft Defender portal directly from Microsoft Sentinel's overview page by selecting the highlighted button. The action connects your Sentinel workspace to Defender XDR, giving you a unified security operations experience with integration for SIEM and XDR capabilities. It's a quick way to streamline your workflows and take advantage of features like embedded security copilot and centralized incident management. The Microsoft Sentinel menu in the Defender portal provides a centralized view for managing your unified SIEM and XDR operations. It includes quick access to tools like search, threat management, and notebooks, along with insights into SOC, organization status, and your organization's Microsoft Secure Score. This layout is designed to streamline security operations and give analysts a clear snapshot in their environment's health and readiness. So now let's start with the exploring and using features in Defender portal module. Once your Microsoft Sentinel workspace is connected to the Defender portal, you can access it directly from the left-hand side of the navigation pane. Key pages like Overview, Incidents, and Advanced Hunting now show unified data from both your Sentinel and your XDR portal page. Core Sentinel features such as search, threat management, and content management are fully integrated, giving you a streamlined experience within the Defender portal. Microsoft Sentinel capabilities are now accessible directly within the Defender portal, making it easier to manage your security operations from a single interface. Key areas like the general settings, the threat management, content management, and configuration are all available under the Microsoft Sentinel section. For tasks that require deeper configuration or advanced features, you can still pivot back to the Azure portal as needed. This setup, it streamlines your workflow while keeping the full power of Sentinel just a click away. Advanced Hunting in the unified portal lets you query both Microsoft Defender XDR and Microsoft Sentinel data, including third-party logs, all from one place. You can access your existing Sentinel workspace content like save queries and functions and use familiar KQ operators like that you're typically used to using to run cross-platform queries effectively. Tables are organized by solution, and you can explore schema details, retention periods, and even sample data directly in the portal. Save queries and functions are easy to find and reuse. The results can be expanded, explored, or exported for deeper analysis. This unified experience streamlines threat hunting and reduces the need to switch between your tools. You can find Microsoft Sentinel data you can find it by using Advanced Hunting Custom Query Language queries to hunt, through Microsoft Defender XDR and Microsoft Sentinel data. You can find many of that workspace tables organized by solution after the Microsoft Defender XDR tables under the Schema tab. You can find functions from Microsoft Sentinel in the Functions tab. Changes made to the status, closing reasons, or assignments of a Defender XDR incident in either Defender XDR or Microsoft Sentinel likewise updates accordingly the other incidents queue. The synchronization takes place in both portals immediately after the change to the incident as it's applied. And there's no delay. A refresh might be required to see the latest changes though. When this merge happens, Microsoft Sentinel incidents reflect the changes. One incident contains all the alerts from both the original incident and the other incident is automatically closed with a tag of redirected added. Now, just keep in mind that incidents in Microsoft Sentinel can contain a maximum of 150 alerts. Defender XDR incidents can have more than this. If a Defender XDR incident with more than 150 alerts is synchronized to Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft Sentinel incident shows as having 150 alerts with a plus sign and provides a link to the parallel incident in Defender XDR, where you can see the full set of alerts in the list. All right, everyone. So now that we've covered this learning path, feel free to watch some of these topics demonstrated in the following labs. Welcome to the lab on configuring your Microsoft Sentinel environment. In this lab demonstration, we're going to cover a few things. So the first thing we'll talk about is creating a log analytics workspace. We'll talk a little bit about that and demonstrate that. Then we'll look at how do we deploy Sentinel to that workspace. We'll then, once we've configured Sentinel to connect, we'll look at data retention options. We'll create a watch list, and we'll look at creating a threat indicator. And then finally, we'll configure overall log retention from our workspace. So those are the demonstrations that we're going to cover in this specific lab. So let's get started. And one of the first things that you'll need to do when you want to deploy Sentinel is you must have a log analytics workspace. So if I go to the Sentinel page, so we're going to go to the Microsoft Sentinel page, and I want to create a brand new instance of Sentinel. You'll notice here the first thing that it's looking for is there a workspace that we can connect to? And right now, there aren't. So what I'll need to do is create and this is a log analytics workspace. So I'll need to create a log analytics workspace that Sentinel can connect to. So we're going to go in and we're going to put it into our resource group. We're going to give it a name. So in this case, we'll call it the Defender workspace. We're going to pick the West US region. So you want to pick the region that you'd like to deploy this instance in. In a production environment, you would add some metadata tags. Microsoft's going to do a validation to make sure we filled in all the pertinent, the minimum requirements and everything is accurate here. So we're going to wait for this validation to complete, which you see right up here. All right, so validation passed. So let's go ahead and create our log analytics workspace. So this is the first part of our deployment. Okay, so now that our log analytics workspace is created, so let's take a look. There it is. Here's our resource group. Here's the workspace itself. If we go to the log analytics page, or if we even go to Sentinel now, and in Sentinel, if we create an instance of Sentinel, you'll now see there is our workspace. So now that I have an existing workspace that I can utilize that's not connected to any other Sentinel instance, I'm going to go and I'm going to select that and I'm going to add that, and it's going to add it to Sentinel. Okay, so now you'll see it automatically switched over once it deployed. So it successfully added Microsoft Sentinel to it. So you'll see here's my Sentinel environment. And on the left, here's our navigation pane where we've got a bunch of different options that we'll be covering some of these as we go through our demonstration. Now, in order to understand what just happened here, let's go ahead and open up a whiteboard and discuss this here. Now, to understand the relationship between the two, let's take a look. We had to create a log analytics workspace. So we had to create a log analytics workspace, and the purpose of this is to store our logs. So this log analytics workspace is going to store our logs. Over here, we have Sentinel. And what we did is we connected Sentinel to the log analytics workspace. So that's essentially what we're doing. And by connecting Sentinel to this workspace, it allows for Sentinel to go in now and start performing data analysis and all the other things that we're going to want to do with this a little bit later. So that's what we've done at this point. Now, in our next module, we'll get more into pulling data in and analyzing it. For this demonstration, we're going to look more at the initial setup of everything that we need to get our environment running. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to look at data retention. Let's talk a little bit about data retention. In our presentation, we talked about it, but let's walk through how this works. So what we're going to do is within Sentinel, we're going to go down to our settings. And within our settings, we're going to go to workspace settings. And within our workspace settings, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to look at, and notice here, we're no longer in Sentinel now. We're actually in the workspace that Sentinel is connected to. So you'll notice here we're in the log analytics page. We're going to go to usage and estimated costs. And within our usage and estimated costs, we're going to go to our data retention option here. Now, you can retain data anywhere from 90 days on up. Now, the maximum you can do is 2 years, which is 730 days. This is for what we refer to as interactive retention, meaning live retention. After you've exceeded the minimum or the retention period that you've defined, then any old data can then potentially be archived depending on how long we want to store the data. So the default is 30. We're going to go all the way up to, and we're going to change our retention period to 180 days, 6 months. So at this point now, our log analytics workspace can store that data for that period of time. So here's what would happen. It would store it for 180 days. This would be our what we call the interactive logs, meaning I can go in and I can run queries using KQL against the interactive data. After 180 days, if we configure archiving on day 181, the first day's data would then be archived. The oldest data would be archived. On day 185, the first 5 days, so day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that data will then be archived. So it's a kind of a rolling time period that we have here for it. But for now, we're just going to worry about the interactive logs, which we're going to store for 180 days. So that will be your initial setup that you would do for that process. Now, once you've got your retention configured, whether it's and while we're here, let's go ahead and take a look at some the other options that we have. So I told you you have 180 days is what we have for our retention currently, which you'll see here. You do have the ability to customize. So what's going to happen is in your log analytics workspace, there are going to be a bunch of tables. So there are some default tables, but there's also going to be additional tables that are created in here. And I want to point out something here. If you notice here, for each, these are my tables that are currently being stored. So going back to our image, those tables, we're going to do log analytics tables, are stored in here. So there's table 1, table 2. Now, obviously, it's not called table 1, 2, 3, but that's these tables that you see here. And if you notice here on the right, for each table, you can configure a custom setting. So initially, I set it for 180 days. So that is the default period that every table will have. That is my total retention. But for each table, I can go in and I can manage the table and I can change those settings. So for this table here, my ABAPA or ABAP audit log table, it's going to store anything in here for 180 days. After 180 days, the old data will be deleted. It will be purged. Because for this one, I do not have archiving enabled. So I can go in here and I can say, you know what? Notice here for total, right now my interactive retention is 180. My total retention is 180. But I can go in there and say, you know what? Let's keep the data long term. So let's say 12 years, which is the max. So what will happen in this scenario is for the first 180 days. So I'm going to draw this out from day 1 to 180. We're going to use the word day here. From day 1 to 180, I can look that data up in here. That's your interactive logs. Think of it as live logs, just to make it easy. Now, on day 181, day 1's data is now sent to archive. So day 1's data will be archived. On day 182, day 1 is already archived. Day 2, so here's my day 2 data, that will be archived, if I can spell archive here. So that's what happens. Only the most current 180 days worth of data is interactive. Everything older, if you configure it here, will then be archived. And what will happen is my archive data, all that data will be stored for up to 12 years. So that's how this process works. So you have the ability to be very granular because you may say, okay, certain tables, and notice here, I'm using 180 days. For certain tables, maybe I don't need it for longer than a month. So I can go in there and do that. So I'm going to save this one. So the alert tables will only be stored for 30 days with no archive period. Whereas some other tables, so let's pick one here. Let's say my security event table. That table, I may want to store longer. So I do have the ability to go in there, and I'm going to refresh my screen because my 3 dots went away here. But if I go to my security event table, For that one, I may say, you know what? I want to keep it live for 2 years. And then after 2 years, I want to store it as archive for the next 10 years. So 12 years total. So for that table, I can keep it longer. Now, there are some reasons why you would do this. So notice here now, my security event, we're going to keep it for 2 years live and then up to 12 years with archiving. I may do that for compliance and regulatory reasons. Maybe I work for an organization that the government mandates I must keep logs for a certain period of time. Or another driving factor for how long you keep logs is cost. The longer you keep the logs, the more expensive it gets. It costs more because the way you're charged in your workspace is for total space used. So if I keep the data 1 week, or let's say 30 days, and delete it, I'm charged a little bit because every 30 days my data gets purged. But if I keep that same data for 2 years, now I'm storing 2 years worth of data, which is going to cost a little bit more. So that's what you want to consider as part of that. So your retention for your log data is not configured in Sentinel. It's actually configured in your log analytics workspace. Now, the next thing, so let's go ahead and shift gears here. Let's go back to our Sentinel. So we're going to go back to our Sentinel instance. And by the way, your Sentinel instance is pretty much the same as your workspace name. So if you notice here, let's go back for a second. When I go to the main Sentinel page here, the name that you see is actually the workspace. This is my Sentinel deployment, but it mirrors the name of my workspace essentially. So here we are in our Sentinel workspace. So now let's take a look at another feature that we have, which is called the watch list. Now keep in mind, the purpose of Sentinel is to analyze log data that's stored in the log analytics workspace. And it's looking for anything that you define. You can configure it to look for very specific things, maybe security related events, or you could just have it look for things, just any event, specific events that you want. It doesn't always necessarily have to be something malicious. I can use Sentinel to track, every time a user logs in, if I wanted to, into a service. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at watch lists. Now, what a watch list is basically a grouping of object names. It could be a user account names, it could be computer names, it could be services, whatever it is, but it's a group of resources, names, that you always want to query together. And instead of manually typing in every name every time, you can create a watch list that does this. So let me demonstrate. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open up Notepad, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to add some entries in here. So the entries I'm just going to call them host 1, host 2, host 3, and so forth. Now I'm going to add an additional line on top here called host name. So we're going to save that. And we're going to save this as a CSV file. So I'm going to call this highvalue.csv, and I'll just save it in my downloads folder for now. Now, in the real world, this could be a list of VIP names. This could be a list of Exchange servers, or it could be a list of database servers. It could be a list of users. It could be whatever you want that list to be. So now that I've got my Notepad listing created, what we're going to do is in our watch list section here, we're going to create a brand new watch list. And the name of this watch list is going to be high value hosts. The description will make it high value hosts. And then the alias is going to be high value host. Now you'll notice for the alias, there's no spacing. Okay. Not allowed. So that's the name of it. Now, where do we get this list of high value hosts? Remember, I created that CSV file, so I can pull it from a local file, but I can also pull it from an Azure storage account if I want. But we're going to pull it from a local file. It's going to be a CSV. So let's go ahead and find that file. So we're going to browse, we're going to go to our downloads, and there's that file. So we're going to go in and we're going to specify a search key for this. Now, I'm getting an error here, and here's why I'm getting that error. And I did this intentionally because I wanted to show you exactly what's happening here. Let's go back to my notepad document here for a second. The one I just created, my high value hosts. There we go. So here's my high value host. Notice I have notice I have a space on the top line. There's a space right here. Matter of fact, you can see there's a space. So when I imported that file, it didn't know what to do with it. So I'm going to remove this here and I'm going to save it now. And I did that intentionally because these are the little things in the real world that will always drive you crazy because you can't figure out why it's not working. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and I'm going to browse and I'm going to find that same file. And notice now it's populated. So I did that intentionally because this has happened in the past to me personally before. And it took me a while to figure it out. It's something as simple as not knowing that there was an extra line in there. So we're going to put that in there, and our search key we're going to use is going to be our host name, is going to be our search key. So I like that, and I'm going to go ahead and create that. So let's go ahead and create it. All right, so now our watch list has been created called high value host, which you'll see right there. Now, if I wanted to, I can go in there and I can manipulate this watch list. So I can go in here and select it, and then I can select the option to update or edit the watch list because I may need to add new hosts later on. So initially, you have to create the watch list through Notepad or a storage account. But once the watch list is created, you can add additional lines or remove lines directly from the Sentinel portal. So if I wanted to, I can add an additional entry in here. We'll just do it here, host 6 if I wanted to. Now, of course, in the real world, this would be something a little bit more, specific in here, not just something generic. So now that I've got the host names in here, there are a couple things that I can do. So you'll see it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and within my high value watch list, we're going to go in here and we're going to just do a sample query so you can see how that works. Now, to do this, and if you're following along and doing this in your home labs, there's something I want you to keep in mind. I just create the watch list. You can verify that it actually is stored. If you go to your logs section in Sentinel, and within your logs, we're going to close all of this here. I'm going to change it from simple to KQL mode. I'm going to go over here in my tables. And if you notice it says watch list here, that means that my watch list has been created. So if I wanted to, I could literally just run a KQL query and there it is. It'll show my watch list being created. And then for my watch list being created, it's called high value host. It identifies, it was created by when it was updated. And then notice here is host 5. If I expand the next one down here, same thing. You'll see host 4 in here, and host 3 and host 2 and host 1 and so forth. So you'll see here. And the reason I bring this up is if the watch list doesn't show up in your log table, if that table doesn't show up, then you cannot run a query against it. That is important. So now that I've got that accomplished, then what I can do is when I run a KQL query, so let's say I create a query for something specific. And then it'll go through and it'll run that watch list for me. So that's the benefit that you have. Now, obviously, I don't have any queries currently built for it. But if I did, then I could use this as part of that and run that against there. So there we go. So now you'll see here all the listing. And this just lists the hosts that are in the watch list. But in the real world, I would have a query that I'm running. And that query, including that, would have this, which would then run the query against my hosts or user accounts or devices, whatever it may be that I have in here. So that's the purpose of running a watch list. Now, the next thing that we have, and we're getting close to the end here, is threat intelligence. In your enterprise, you want to have a repository of threat intelligence data. You want to know what are the known threats out there in the world. You want to know about as many of those as possible. And the beautiful thing about Sentinel is it can assist you with that. Sentinel has a threat intelligence section here. So if you go down to threat intelligence, this is where all of your threat intelligence data will show up. Now, the term that we use for the entries are called indicators of compromise. Now, there are a couple different ways that I can get threat intelligence data in here. Notice here, I currently don't have any threat intelligence data within my workspace. So the quickest way to do it is to add your own individual entry. So I can go in here and I'm going to add a new object. So we're going to add a new threat intelligence object. In this case here, it's going to be an indicator. And then you fill in the information here. So in this case, from the object type, is it a pattern or free text? So you can specify that. So in this case here, what we're going to do for the object type, we're going to look at it and we're going to look at a domain name. And the domain name that in our scenario is may potentially have a problem will be contoso.com. Someone in your organization, either you or someone else, has identified this as a potential threat. Maybe it's a malicious domain, a hacker's domain or something like that. Maybe something that if you go here, you can get different threats against you as part of that. So this is the domain that we're going to look at. Now, in the name field, we're going to use this essentially the same name. You don't have to, but it just makes it easier to search for. So we're going to say this is the contoso.com domain. And then the next thing that we need is, okay, what type of threat, what type of indicators do we have that this is a malicious site? So for our indicators, we're going to say we know that this site has malicious activity going on. Now, you do have the ability, if you want to add kill chain information. This kill chain could be MITRE threat information, or if you want it to be, it could be actually from the Lockheed Martin kill chain site. But I do recommend that as an organization that you sit down and you identify what are the different options that you can put in here. Come up with a taxonomy, a listing of things that will be put in here, because you can run queries, KQL queries, against all of the fields that you see here. You can run queries against all of this. And if your kill chain field is, let's say one person puts in here, and you could do MITRE or as part of this. So we're going to, I can say, let's say initial access. So I can do that. So you want to standardize how it's done. You specify how long this indicator of compromise is valid for. So start date and stop date as part of that. So I'm just going to put it in here for a couple months. Now, what is the source of this? What is the source of this information? And again, you can put whatever you want in here for the source. It makes it easier to search. The creation date, which will normally be right now that when it's created by, you can specify who, give it a description. You can add additional metadata tags if you want to. Again, you normally want to sit down and come up with a standardized way of doing that. If it's a certificate or if it's no longer valid, you can revoke it if you need to. And then, what is it? We call it the traffic light protocol to help you identify, is it good, bad? In this case here, it's red, it's bad. We can put the severity level, one could be good or one could be bad. 5 could be good, 5 could be bad, depending on how you define you want it. And then you select the add option. So you fill in all the pertinent information and then you select add. So now here's our first indicator of compromise that we have within our environment. Now, there is one thing that you want to consider. In the real world, there are hundreds of thousands of different threats that are out there or indicators of compromise. So generally speaking, what I just demonstrated here is not something you would do for every threat that's out there. There are third-party services that will provide a listing to you. Even within Microsoft, within Sentinel, we have tools that will automatically import known threats for you. So typically when you add a new entry, these are new, unique things that may not be out there. These are going to be things that you've identified. But normally, you're going to pull from some type of threat intelligence service. Now, Microsoft provides one, and this is going to be through our connectors here, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Microsoft has free services that you can use, or if you want to use a current service that you currently have, in many cases, you can bring that data over also into your threat intelligence database. Now, once you have all that data in here, then you can go into your logs and you can run queries against that. Now, as before, you cannot run a query against it until it shows up. So if you notice, the tables have already been populated, so we're good to go. So I'm going to go with the KQL mode, personal preference here. And now I can run queries against this. So in here, I can do just a basic query, which is, give me a listing of all entries that we have. Now, I do have an entry in here, but notice here it says in the last 24 hours, there have been no results. And the primary purpose for that is the fact that it still hasn't technically updated. So it may take a few minutes for that information to show up in your query. But you could, it can take 5 to 7 minutes. But if you wait a little bit, you'll see that query pop in here. So let's give it a second. Okay. So now, as you can see, it took about 3 minutes here. But the beauty of video, we fast forward here. But now you can see that the entry is in here. Now, would I just run the threat intelligence indicator command by itself, the table? In the real world, probably not. If you've already watched the KQO video, then you would see that you would probably add some filters, some where statements, and some other things in there to further filter this down. But because we only have one entry in here, it's perfectly fine to give us the one entry that we do have in here. But now that as you start populating data in here, or have it automatically populated into your threat intelligence service, as you start doing that, now you can run very fancy queries. I can go in there. We're going to talk about analytics a little bit later in one of our next videos here, our next chapters. But I can run an analysis that looks at, compare all the log data that I have in my workspace. Does any of it match any known threat intelligence indications? If so, we can generate an alert. So that gives you an example of how you do the initial setup for Sentinel as well as your log analytics workspace. Thank you very much and enjoy this lab. In conclusion, in this learning path, we covered Microsoft Sentinel. We talked about Microsoft Sentinel is a scalable cloud-native solution that provides a security, information, and event management and security orchestration and automated response capability. We talked about Sentinel components. Microsoft Sentinel has various components, including data connectors, parsers, workbooks, analytics rules, hunting queries, notebooks, incidents, investigations. There's automation rules and a lot of other things, including watch lists as part of this. We also looked at Sentinel usage. It's important that you always keep track of your overall usage. And we discussed the different ways that you can modify your overall storage for Sentinel. We talked about retention policies and daily limits. We discussed Sentinel watch list. Microsoft Sentinel watch list can be used for investigating threats, responding to incidents quickly, importing business data, and so forth. Reducing alert fatigue is another key one. We also talked about Microsoft Threat Intelligence. Microsoft Sentinel allows you to manage threat intelligence indicators. It allows you to view, sort, filter, and search your imported threat indicators and perform everyday threat intelligence administrative tasks. So finally, this is the conclusion of Learning Path 7. There are many ways to continue your learning journey. We encourage you to watch other videos in this course or Search out your next favorite topic on the Microsoft Learn site, and you can access that at aka.ms/learn. Thank you.